Hey guys, and welcome to Star Technology Progression Log 6? Yes, 6. I sorry about the delay. It was Thanksgiving weekend and I didn't really get a chance to record until now. Um, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I've had a pretty busy week, gotten quite a lot of stuff done. So I guess we'll start with the CPUs over here. I was getting really annoyed with we only had four 4Ks, which meant that I could only run a couple of crafts, up to four at once, and all of them had to be pretty limited in scope. For a while, they were all right, but we're getting to the stage where things are getting pretty expensive in terms of the number of nested components they have. So things have really kind of been exploding in byte cost. So the 4Ks weren't cutting it anymore. So I upgraded to 14 CPUs in total, all of them with 4 co-processors and 64 storage. Uh, Probably would have been better to make fewer larger processors, but if I ever want more, I'm going to use at least this space over here for them as well. Um, for now, though, these are more than large enough for pretty much anything I've wanted to craft. Actually, everything I've wanted to craft. I've never run out of size on these things, although I have come a little bit close. I think my largest craft was like 50,000. Um, but that was a kind of a ridiculously sized craft anyway. So I'm very happy with all these processors and stuff. It's been a long time coming. It did take quite a while to get them all crafted up, though. I also have some energy storage now. Um, I was One of the problems I had with my power system was that my maximum demand couldn't be any larger than my production. I had no surge capacity basically. And I was trying to push for Lapatronic supercapacitors, but I was reminded that gargantuan flux capacitors or flux storages work, and they exist, and it's 128 billion RF per tick each, so 32 billion EU for each one of these things, and I have three of them, and it looks like almost a quarter of this thing is full. Or well, no, uh, six, something like that. Anyway, um, we have plenty of storage capacity now. Even though it looks like we can take a look, we're up to 288,000 RF per tick input. We can go ahead and talk about power now, I guess. We'll go take a look at that. I love the chain conveyors; they're so fun. Um, Over the last couple of days, I have actually gotten around to setting up some nuclear reactors. We have two, each one burning a different fuel type. There are four different things you can burn. However, we are burning thorium fuel rods for 1 amp IV over 15 seconds. And then this one burns one depleted, highly enriched uranium fuel rod for 2 amps IV every 15 seconds. So the idea behind this is you can burn thorium. Here, actually, we'll take a look at the nuclear reactor first, the recipes. So there are four recipes. You have highly enriched uranium, thorium, this fluorovovium high hexoxide octofluorosulfato plutonate dust. Then you'll have low enriched uranium fuel rod. I actually only ran a little bit of this stuff because what this gets you is the plutonium 239. You need plutonium 239 specifically for radon looping, and you don't really use it for anything else, right? I don't think you use it for anything else other than to make the other isotopes to centrifuge them for. I don't think you need the plutonium for stuff. So I'm not particularly concerned about having to make more of it. Because I did try to go gambling for plutonium, which by centrifuging, because you can centrifuging regular uranium dust is a 2% chance at HV, to get a tiny pile. And I gambled like 1100 uranium dust and got half of what I needed for one recipe. Um, so I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. Especially since how close I was to nuclear reactors, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna wait to set up. I got stuck behind radon for so long. Radon was really, really obnoxious. Trying to find the plutonium for it was horrible. Um, I've been really suffering on pitch blend. I don't know why my ore processing system isn't producing as much pitch blend as it should. It's probably just because it's slow. I do need to upgrade it. I have actually ordered a bunch of crafts last night to upgrade it, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So yeah, I ran a bunch of low enriched fuel rods for a bunch of plutonium, so now I have radon looping as well. And now we're just running the thorium and enriched. Because the idea is you burn a thorium rod. Um, let's see. So you can burn a thorium fuel rod for a depleted thorium fuel rod. And this is recycled into uranium-235, which is recycled into the highly enriched uranium fuel rod. So by burning, so basically one thorium reactor will fuel a highly enriched uranium fuel rod. And this is where the money is made, because the thorium on its own really isn't all that great, at least right now. They do scale with parallel hatches, so you can run more recipes at once, and they'll always run as many as they have the resources to run. So once we get parallel hatches, this one will be the worth four of them, and this one also be worth four of them. Obviously, we'll have to, do the back end infrastructure for that, like the centrifuging and the canning for the fuel rods and stuff. But you can do that. But right now, they're really not that great, unfortunately. They'll scale better later, but at least when compared to like the Create turbines, like this full neodymium magnet turbine here produces about 30,000 RF per tick, 29.5, whereas this one over here produces 32,000 RF per tick. And they're about the same size. They take up pretty similar space, at least on this pad over here. It's a little bit smaller. The big upside of it is obviously that it'll scale better once I get parallel hatches, whereas the Create steam engines they can't scale anymore. There's not really much I can do over here unless I want to literally tear it all out and rebuild it closer together. Um, so the Create steam engines can't really go anywhere, right? So, but these ones can, and also these Create steam engines don't require this huge space right here. Uh, all these steam engines to run those turbines. Um, or I guess those generator coils, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, so eventually the steam engines will get torn out and will replaced with nuclear reactors. And I plan to use para hatches on these, and I think we'll use this stuff until fusion. What's really nice about the nuclear reactors is the depleted highly enriched uranium fuel rods is recycled into plutonium-241, and plutonium-241 is used in a couple of different things. Not too many things at this stage, so we won't have to use a lot of them for now. But the thing that we'll use it for in the near future, or I should say distant future, I guess, since this is ZPM, will be to make a Americium plasma. And a Americium plasma is what we'll be using for power later on. 1.4 million EU per millibucket, which is pretty nice. I do know that deuterium or making helium plasma is technically more efficient in terms of the power you get out of it. The problem is there's no good source of deuterium. Ender air is going to be obnoxious, and centrifuging hydrogen gas just does not look viable, at least not in the amounts you would need to run a serious power system off helium plasma. Liquid ender air is not something we can't get access to the end or the nether for that matter, at least not until um, like post Ancient Stargate. Like that's like draconic. That's like the very last chapter when you're working on Maxwell. Um, so, right, to make liquid ender, or I should say to get ender air, you need nether air and end agglomeratio, or you have to burn air essence. So this is the only really viable way to make it, and it's still like not a great recipe, I think, especially since it looks like you have to like mystical agriculture looks like it's basically just gambling. Um, so that's not really viable for us right now. Maybe eventually, if I really want to sink a bunch of time into mystical agriculture, it could be viable. But I do not see it being viable for a significant amount of time, if ever. And the other thing is, we also just need a Meracium for stuff. You need a Meracium for neutronium, as well as I believe you need the wires for stuff. No? Oh, I guess not in this version. Um, Here's the ingots. We have foils or wire mills. I'm sure we need like fine wire for something. I haven't really looked too much at the things we use Americium wire for. Yeah, UV stuff, UV motors and things. So Americium plasma will be the way to go because we can always make the stuff through thorium, and that'll be nice. I really want to use nuclear reactors. I always find nuclear reactors a lot of fun in modern Minecraft. They're always my favorite form of power generation. I'm a huge fan of nuclear reactors, even in real life. I'm gonna be real. I think they're super cool. And we have lots and lots of thorium. I did set up deep slate line, so we'll take a look at that as well. Um, so when I played Monty Factory, I had tons and tons of thorium just lying around, and I really wished I was able to use it for power, because NCN was just like not really something I wanted to mess with in Monty Factory. And the funny thing is, it's actually getting removed from Money Factory. It was really funny. It got fixed a bunch, and then they worked it better and more into IV progression. It like replaced Flatline, and now it's getting removed. Anyway, so we do have nuclear reactors, more power. Eventually, we're gonna have to start swapping more of these things out. There's not really a whole lot of space in here because the nuclear reactors don't produce enough power to completely replace the turbines yet, unfortunately. So I just have to move some things around until I can actually uh, replace it all in one fell swoop. Because I can only rip it all out once I know I have power storage, which I do now. But once I can actually plonk down and support all the nuclear reactors required to keep the base running, then I can do it. I can obviously move a few more of these turbines over here and add a few more. I can always turn this one on. This one isn't on right now. I haven't fueled it up and stuff. We don't really have the back end infrastructure, which we can go talk about over here. The backend infrastructure over here is just some canners. Unfortunately, there's no single block, multi-block canner. There is the IV multi-block. I think it's like the large extraction machine or something. Yeah. Eventually I can make one of these things once I get the para hatch, and this will be nice. But I do have a couple of just single block canners over here. Um, I have to plug in another. I have to plug in one for each one if I want to run another thorium reactor, or at least have to plug in another one for the thorium. Uh, it, this one only produces one order every 10 seconds, so it's more than enough to feed one, but it's not enough to feed two. So I'm gonna have to do a little bit more work over here. And then on this side over here we have the centrifuge. I do want to move this input bus to the middle and the output bus to the middle, and then throw another centrifuge on the back, and that'll be perfect. Because let me tell you, I know I talked some smack about the single block machine, the single block multi blocks, like the IV multi blocks last week. I'm pretty sure it was last week. And I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. EV multi blocks. These things are goated. All I have to say is perfect overclocks are insanely awesome. Perfect overclocks are amazing. They're 4 times faster. So look at that. It's running things at IV for 4 seconds, whereas for like a regular um centrifuge, like a single block or not necessarily, yeah, or either a single block or like the big IV multi blocks wouldn't do perfect overclock. So that's like much faster for less power, which is really nice. Um, but yeah, as you can see, we have monstrous amounts of plutonium-241 over here. We also have 3 extra plutonium dust, which is just sitting in here. And I have the empty aluminum cells. These get recycled through the whole system. They're not consumed. I did have to order like 1,000 from on demand, and then we were fine. So I had 1,000, and then now they just kind of get recycled. I'll probably order like another 1,000 at some point or something, just to make sure there's plenty if extra cells. I don't know. We do have 200 here, so I'll have to see what I do about that. But yeah, this is pretty good. So we have extra, we recycle all the thorium into uranium-235, which then gets pulled over there, which then gets pulled into the reactors, which then gets centrifuged over here to 241. Um, so we have lots of this stuff. There's not really much we can do with it now. Like, it's only really useful once you get fusion, and that's like in ZPM, like late ZPM tier, I think, is when we actually start needing Americium stuff. So plutonium-241 isn't particularly useful now, which is why it's on overflow destruction at this stage, because if we have enough to fill a 65K storage drive, I'm really not that concerned, because we do just have a constant stream of it, and we are going to get a lot of it, because we are always going to run nuclear reactors, even once we switch to fusion for power. And on the topic of fusion for power, um, the way these two these power related buildings are laid out, they wouldn't really be great for fusion, at least the way they're, like I said, like the way they're laid out now. Fusion really wouldn't fit particularly well. But the nice part about having built these such large buildings is that they are large enough for fusion reactors. Which means all I have to do to fit fusion reactors here in here is I'll have to like replan out the floor. I'll have to like tear it all up and then build it again with fusion reactors in mind. And I might have to tear the roof off, which would be really obnoxious, and it would be a very long, drawn-out process. But that's all I would have to do. It'd all be just decorative work, really. I really wouldn't have to like run out like kludge some I guess some solution together because I didn't leave enough space. Building the Create Steam engines was so space inefficient for the amount of power I built early on, was that it was actually a bonus. I mentioned this before, but using so much space early on meant that I would always have space for power later on, once I switched to other more power dense forms of generation. You know what I mean? Like, the nuclear reactors, I have plenty of space for those, and then I'll have plenty of space for fusion and fusion turbines and stuff. Not just because I have like just this building, but I also have over here for all these farms. Like once the create steam engines are gone, these won't be necessary. So I can tear all these things out too. So I'll have room over here as well. So maybe like the turbines will go over here, or the fusion reactors themselves will go over here. Um, don't exactly know, but I will have room for everything that I need to. I was thinking maybe about supplementing power with nitrobenzene, uh, until I learned about that nuclear reactors can have parallel hatches, which I forgot, even though it says right on there you can use parallel hatches, um, which we aren't that far away from, but we're not that close to either. I guess we'll go ahead and talk about over here now. So this is some chem distilling stuff. I believe I had most of this already set up last week. I'm pretty sure I did. But if I didn't, we just fermenting, uh, or sorry, fermenting. We're distilling fermented biomass over here for some stuff. It's currently blocked up on methane right now, which is fine because methane is what we want from this. I'm also distilling liquid air as well. We're doing charcoal byproducts and then all the various things that go with that as well. I was working on setting up oil and petrochem last night, and then I had switched gears pretty rapidly trying to get towards nether stars, which I'll talk about in a bit. Over here, we just have some support equipment. We have electrolyzers so we can turn methane into hydrogen mostly. It also turns into carbon dust, which we don't really need as much of, could we get from other sources, so I'm not really turning this on for carbon dust. Um, this is just a macerator to make plant balls. The last time I had set this up, I'm pretty sure I already set this up last week. I'm pretty sure I have. I don't know. Well, I did set up a new macerator, just a big multi-block one. That's one tick stuff. The one downside about these EV multi-blocks is they don't do subtick. So like the minimum speed or the maximum speed they can do a recipe is 1 tick or 0.15 seconds. I think that's a tick, um, or something like that. Um, it can't do less than 1 tick a recipe. So there's a max speed these things can work at, but for most instances, at least at this stage of the game, one recipe in 1 tick is more than fast enough. I don't really need subtick recipes at this stage, so I'm not really too concerned about them not being quote unquote fast enough. That might become an issue at like UHV or I don't even know if I'm gonna go past UHV, but at that stage maybe I'll have to think about it. But up until then, it's gonna be fine. I'm not really concerned. I didn't do the big multi-blocks over here, just because of space. I need to save some room over here. I don't know if I want to do crackers over here. I probably will put crackers over there, but I do want to put a quad SCR over here for desulfurization. Um, and then I'm gonna put some more distillation towers over here for the rest of the petrochem products. Um, so yeah, I haven't done oil yet. We don't really need it too badly right now, though it's something that I do need to get a move on. Um, anyway, over here, this is what I was working on last night, was the beginnings of Nether Star line. And it looks like we actually have some impure Nether Stars. Unfortunately, they're not quite done. What these things need to do is they need to get put through an implosion compressor with some industrial TNT, powder barrels, and TNT or dynamite. And then this will make regular nether stars, and this is the only thing holding us back from IV, actually. Once we get these nether stars, we can then make quantum stars, and quantum stars we can use to make IV sensors and emitters, and that'll get us solidly into IV with this IV circuit assembler and IV laser engravers. Most of the circuit assembler and ME circuit assemblers is what I'm looking at, as well as the parahatches require emitter and sensors, so that'll be pretty big too. I do need to set up TNT. I probably should set up via nitration mixture since I might need nitration mixture later on. But I was really lazy last night. I was just done. um, But yeah, this is like exceptionally slow and really obnoxious. And I bet we're out of rhodium. Oh no, we're actually good on rhodium. Nice. I know this thing consumed a bunch of stuff. I bet you're probably just oh, I'm curious what you're. Oh, you're missing helium gas. Really, we're out of helium. Crap. I'll have to figure that out. That's not gonna be fun. I wonder how what is it getting helium. I know you can get it from petrochem. Um, I guess you could centrifuge endstone. I guess there's helium plasma. That's yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Maybe monazite dust actually. And your air is already not an option. I guess it's gonna be monazite. Huh. Anyway, guess it's a problem for later. Um, yeah, so we have another star line here, and it's mostly done. I do need to set up a forge hammer, so you can break down regular completed nether stars because the chain is a little bit obnoxious. So in order to make all of the here, let me clear. I don't need any of this stuff. In order to make all of these shards, you have to at first autoclave a charge, like a fire charge or like a blizz charge, or for this case, it would be a blitz charge in the liquid form of whatever material it's made out of. So a fire charge is liquid blaze, and then an earth shard would be liquid basalts, for example. And this would give you a 20% chance to get a shard. You can also autoclave it with either an energized, so you can also autoclave it with an energized nether star, which gives you a 50% chance to get one and a 45% chance to get a second one. And this replaces the fire charges. It doesn't replace the liquid blaze, but you do get better chances, and it is like better at this stage. It's just better to do it this way, but this is an IV. Um, so we'll need IV energy hatches for this. The other options you have are nether tempered and energized, or also just using the energized liquid stuff, and this gives you guaranteed 1 for 1 or 3 for or 1 for 3 in this case. The only thing is these are UV and UEV, so this is not happening anytime soon. UV is like when we get a Marcian plasma, we can do it this way. So for right now, we're stuck with this way, and then once I actually get some IV hatches down, I can actually switch to using the energized Nether Star Shard. I should probably turn off the LCRs or the ones that make the fire charges. Now that I think about it, I probably didn't really need to set up all these mixers. Um, so I don't really know what I'm gonna do with all these mixers actually. Now that I think about it, I don't know. Problem for later, me, I guess. I built the system, and I'm not gonna sit down and tear them all out. Maybe I will later. I don't know. But yeah, so we have a little bit of nether stars. It's gonna take a while to. I wonder what's holding it back. Earth infused. Oh right, helium. Well, we still have a decent stockpile of nether stars we can make. 56 will be enough for hopefully a while. At least until I can actually fix some other problems. Talking about this petrochem line over here, I don't really like how I did it. Specifically, I don't like how I have local storage. I was looking at some stuff later on, and we're gonna get some other chemicals that are made here that are gonna be made in other systems. Very specifically, with hydrofluoric acid. Hydrofluoric acid we need for various things throughout the base, specifically uraninite processing. And we do make this in a chemical reactor over here. Um, However, we also get it from an EBF recipe from titanium trifluoride dust, which gives us some hydrofluoric acid and the titanium ingots. And this comes from pure netherite line, as well as NAC line. Where? Pretty sure this comes from. Maybe it's the small dusts. Yes, it's the small dusts. Um, this comes from pure netherite line, which is what we need to do soon-ish. This will be another pure netherite is used in a lot of the big multi-blocks that I want, specifically for ore processing. Um, so this is going to be an absolute pain in the ass. And we will need to eventually process titanium trifluoride dust down. And that will get us hydrofluoric acid. I don't really want to set that up in here. I could have it insert into here. I believe I have insertion set up so it can dump into this network. But it just made me think about whether I don't really want storage on this network. Because it can see everything, It made it so it was easier to simplify some of the storage when working with this subnet, but I really think it should just be able to dump back into mainnet and then just filter all of the stuff from mainnet, or mainnet should just have filters for fluids. Um, that might lead to some problems. Now that I think about it, some things, well, that's the whole point of level emitters, so then it won't. Um, so I do just have to fix this. I don't really like how I did this, but that's just how it goes. I think local storage on subnets is, in general, a mistake. Um, it just makes it harder to deal with with some things and moving some things around. As always, and saying that, I have lots of subnets with local storage. For example, the network I just talked about this is all local storage and stuff. I'm okay with this over here because most things don't get put back in here. Um, the exception is things like nitrogen gas, which if I cancel a craft, doesn't really know where to put it. So that's something I do have to fix, but for the most part, it's fine. When I say it's a mistake, I think it's a mistake in some contexts, and I think it's a mistake in this context and not a mistake in that context. In the in terms of it's a mistake in like the chemline context and a mistake in not a mistake in the distillery section context. I also have some local storage over here. I think this is fine as well because the only thing we ever actually will use throughout the rest of the base for a long while is Liquid Blaze. So everything else over here is basically constrained to another star line. We even have gunpowder over here, and we don't even really care about gunpowder all that much. I don't really use the create engine or the create schematic cannon anymore, since I haven't really done any creative designing anymore. I only really did it initially because I didn't have the ability to create a fly and the ability to mess around and experiment in survival. And now I'm at the stage where I can do that, so I'm not really all concerned about having to design things in creative mode anymore. Um, so yeah, I don't really need most of these things in the rest of the base as well. I mean, blaze powder will also get used throughout, which is why this is in an unlocked drawer instead of only having being downgraded to a single stack. It's left at 2K. It's cheap. So I guess we'll go ahead and talk about Deep Slate Line over here. This area was actually initially designed for Plantline. And Plantline got just tacked onto ore processing, which I'll mention in a minute. I think I'm going to come back to ore processing last. Or at least I might go to on-demand last. Anyway, so this is Deep Slate Line where we use rock crushers to make deep slate, which then gets crushed into deep slate dust, centrifuged for silicon dioxide and biotite dust. Right now, I'm just trashing the silicon dioxide dust. I don't really want it clogging up the drives, although I still think it is going into the drives. Yeah, it is. I meant to just delete all of it, but I think it's still been, yeah, it's been going into the drives. Anyway, whoops. Anyway, so we electrolyze the biotite dust in this electrolyzer for, oh nice, fluorine, oxygen, silicon, aluminum, magnesium, and potassium. The fluorine is really nice. We do get that from a couple of other sources as well, things like sodalite. I've been trying to process our sodalite. It was a little bit of a mistake because we have a lot of sodalite, more than our processing system can currently handle. That's just kind of a running theme with the ore processing system. It's good with reasonable levels of resources, but most of the things we have are unreasonable levels, and it just kind of chokes up constantly. I've been really struggling with drive space and processing speeds, and it's kind of a mess. Um, which is when I'll talk about the upgrades. So deep slate line, actually the reason I set it up wasn't for fluorine, it was for thorium. One of the byproducts you get from processing deep slate deep slate is, if we macerate it, you have a 1% chance of thorium, and we're perfect overclocking to HV, so we have a 1.8% chance of thorium dust for every deep slate we macerate, which isn't a whole lot, but it's actually really helpful and really necessary, specifically because pitch blend has been so bad. I've been getting so poor rates on pitch blend that it's been really necessary. We can also get a little bit of thorium from some coal processing, which is what I'm trying to do as well. For as well as we need coal dust for parts of netherite. You can't substitute like carbon dust or charcoal dust in the charges. They have to be coal dust, which is really obnoxious, but it is what it is. So yeah, we have eventually I'm actually going to replace the rock crusher with igneous extruders. Because these rock crushers, while they can perfect overclock to 1 a tick, even if I put 4 here, that's only 4 a tick, which really isn't all that much in the grand scheme of things. Especially once I'm going to start increasing the burn rates for more nuclear reactors, I'm going to need more deep slate than this is really capable of getting me. And there are no big IV multi blocks for rock crushers. So it's either the single blocks, which will go up higher, but I don't know if those can go. I don't know if those can subtick either. I don't think they can. Um, so you're kind of out of luck. So it's gonna have to be the igneous extruders from thermal expansion with the big kits because there are upgrade kits. There's actually up to EV upgrade kits, which we can make. These are not difficult for us. We have everything here. So we'll just have like a bunch of them. And hopefully I'll be able to really cram them in and get an absolute monstrous amount of them, and that'll be nice. I don't think we'll need more than that, but I can always stack up, I guess, just build up in like a tower or whatever. Um, and I might be able to replace some extra instead of having like 4 centrifuges, maybe only have 2 and do some reworking over here to leave more room for extruders or not extruders. Or, yeah, well, yeah, I guess extruders. But that's a problem for later. Over here we have an industrial barrel. This is being used to make lava. I finally have lava production. Lava has been kind of a nightmare for a little bit when it comes to things like flux dust. Like that was one of the things that was holding me back from a lot of the big heavy flux network crafts, like the gargantuan flux storages, was just not having a lot of lava because a single gargantuan flux storage is like 2,000 buckets of lava. um, so I didn't have that much, especially since most of the lava I had was, I think, pretty much what I had was just like a legacy left over from the original bootstrapping island. Um, when I was making lava in a single stone barrel and just threw a super take on it, and just was feeding cobblestone into it. So I didn't really have all that much left over. And now I do. Obviously, I have 180,000 buckets of lava. Um, I don't know what I'm gonna use for the rest of this line. I think um, it's gonna be things like slit take. The slit take spores are used for slime balls, which we use in not sticky resin. Uh, Here we go. So we use slime balls, which gets used in sticky pistons. Those are used in sticky pistons get used in like storage buses and stuff. I think that's like the big thing for them. So we don't use too many of them, but it would be nice to make sure I always have a supply of them, just because I am sort of worried about eventually not realizing that I've consumed all of them, and then I have to go throw down some sieves, and it'll be really annoying. And this is kind of where this area has been set out for. I can set up witch water and stuff over here. There'll be some more barrels and things. I might throw extra mixers and stuff over here as well. Um, this was just sort of an area originally meant for Platline, and then when I was building it out, I was like sizing it up for Platline, and Platline is not large. This is not GTNH, and Platline is not large. It's only a handful of LCRs and a mixer and a distillation tower if you feel like being fancy, like an electrolyzer or two and a centrifuge or two. There's really not a lot in, and it would be really, really like weird to build a room that would have been for our building for these 2 lines because it would have fit in these 2 pads here. Um, and I was like, if it's so small, like one of these paths is like the same size as a single one of these ore processing rows or less. So I was like, I'll just stick it in ore processing because then I can reuse a bunch of the machines that are already in ore processing. Things like the centrifuge, things like the electrolyzers. Those can just get reused and they're just dumped back into the processing networks, and those outputs can just be stored in the output networks. Because one of the things with Platline is you also get like gold as silicon dioxide and copper and nickel as byproducts. So I was like, I'll just do it in Platline, and I did. So I have Platline and ore processing, and it's over here in the back. Um, and what's really nice is because I get to one of the problems I had with or Platline in Monty Factory was that I had to have some of the purified ores be relegated to the final outputs network because Platline was exterior and needed to see all of those ores. So those things were done elsewhere, which meant I had some random things in the output network. Whereas now it's all self-contained, so none of that stuff has to see the light of day, or at least the mainnet, right? which is really nice, as well as being able to reuse all the machines. So the machines will be, right now they are the bottleneck, just because all of these machines are terrible, and I need to upgrade a bunch of these things. But once they're upgraded, Plantline will be in a really nice state. I also plan to do indium line over here. Actually added another pad back here for indium line. I don't think there's any more special or processing lines I'll have to do, but if I do, I have the room for them, and I am completely and utterly willing to just extend this pad out even farther if necessary. Um, ore processing is something I just kind of want to do under all one roof, I guess sort of literally. I was really annoyed about all the exterior processing I had to do outside of ore processing, and I was just really not happy with that. So, yeah, there we go. We have, I think it also helps that I set up Flatline very early on, because I had Flatline in Mining Factory before I had good ore processing, from what I remember. I'm trying to remember the order I set them up in, and I'm pretty sure I had to set up Flatline in order to get the IV multi-blocks. So, or in this case, I already had ore processing planned out, at least my final ore processing planned out, and then I just built it. I also have an LCR over here. This is to make this is to process uraninite. Uraninite. This is what we actually use hydrofluoric acid for. Uraninite gets used in. Let me pull up uraninite. Here we go. So in an LCR, you have hydrofluoric acid and fluorine gas makes uranium hexafluoride, which you centrifuge into the depleted and enriched forms. Each of these are electrolyzed. Enriched makes uranium-235, and depleted makes uranium dust or uranium-238. We do get the fluorine back, which is nice, and this stuff is just recycled. So we have another source of what's really nice, because we have the output gases get recycled back into the final output network, which means it's all self-contained again. So I'm really happy with just deciding to throw a bunch of this stuff into Flatline, or into ore processing. It does make this area a little bit of a mess, but it's not really too big of a problem. And the other reason why I'm sticking it back here is eventually at ZPM you get Cameline reduction, chemical skip, which is a like ZPM tier thing, and it takes a certain set of recipes and will divide like big chemical lines and then just break them down into a single machine. So with a single machine, you don't have to use the electrolyzers, you don't have to use the centrifuges. It just takes hydrofluoric acid, uraninite dust, and then just produces all of the outputs. Uranium dust, uranium-235, fluorine gas, hydrogen, oxygen. Um, you can also do that with Platline as well. It'll break down Platline, it'll break down tungsten stuff, so you don't have to wash tungsten at all. We have like platinum, you just combine aqua regia and platinum group sludge, and it just gives you all of the outputs. Hydrochloric acid, nitric acid. You don't get any of the sulfuric byproducts like the sulfuric nickel dust and the sulfuric copper dust this way. Um, but Naquita it'll simplify down. It'll simplify polyether ether ketone. It'll also simplify a bunch of things as well. Um, so that's like look at 3344 benzophenone tetracarboxylic dianhydrous dust. What the fuck is that? What the hell? Jesus Christ, am I gonna have to make this stuff? What is this used for? Polyamic acid? Liquid polyamide? What the hell? I don't want to look at this. This is scary. I'm scared. Um, I'm gonna put down the JEI tab before anyone gets hurt. So you have Pletline here, and I guess I can go ahead actually. Pletline is not particularly interesting, I think, at this stage. It's pretty standard stuff. It's all running at EV or IV where it has to. Um, it looks like it's running pretty all right. Actually, I had one of these LCRs has to do double duty. I miscounted. This one down here has to process both iridium chloride and osmium tetraoxide dust. Both of them just get combined with hydrogen gas, and it's pretty quick, and both of them come pretty slowly. Their rates are pretty low, so they both work fine over here. They're both processed pretty fast as well. 5 seconds for iridium chloride and 10 seconds for um, osmium tetroxide, and that's at LUV each. And they all perfect overclock to EV, so it's like 3 ticks or something. But yeah, so those outputs are done. Plotly was nice. Took me like an hour and a half or something like that to set everything up. Um, got its own subnet. Very good. I do need to set up Indium line because that's a thing I need to set up for if I want to use IV energy hatches. I think that's actually the thing that's holding us back from IV energy hatches. I forget. Uh, yes. Well, we have an IV assembler already. Insane voltage coils requires iridium, which we have, and neodymium, which we also have. Tungsten, we all have that stuff. It's just the HPIC stuff that's holding us back, and HPICs requires a chemical reactor with NPIC wafers and liquid vanadium gallium. Liquid vanadium gallium will not be hard. I believe we can just do that in a ABS maybe, or well, the liquid stuff we can't. We have to probably make it. We could do the molten form, and then we have to make it into the ingot, and then we have to melt it down, which is not hard because we have an ABS, which I'll talk about in a minute. Um, so yeah, that's the indium is the big thing, which is we're gonna require me setting up another big thing down there. Um, oh wow, the drives are actually okay. These drives are not okay. These drives are full, but at least the washing drives are less full. Last night when I was on, most of these drives were chock full. I had to throw a 256K in here, and that was obnoxious. The washing step has been exceptionally slow and has been a long time bottleneck of ore processing. We also have, it looks like over here is, oh, niobium dust is, are you actually even whitelisted over here? You are. It's just that these drives are full, which is highly unfortunate. I actually over here I do have some 256K drives, and one thing I started doing was I just started adding partitioned 256K storage drive or partitioned 64Ks originally for a while because there was something I realized was that I was like constantly trying to like rush for bulk storage drives, because bulk storage drives store infinite of one item, so they're the ultimate partitioned drive. The problem with these things is they need IV, right? Um, IV circuits is not hard. It's the 1 mil. It's like the 1 million mega storage component that requires the big IV things. It requires the IV ME assembler. Everything else we can do here. Um, which we can actually, once I actually set up the nether stars, I can actually start working on these things. But at the time, earlier this week, I just wasn't at the stage where I could do that. And I was also at the stage where just adding more unpartitioned 64K drives really wasn't getting me much because all the storage was fragmented across a bajillion different drives and it was just awful. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to spam 64Ks because once I have bulks, I can recycle empty drives back into bulks, and it'll save me time later on, and it'll save me headache now. So I have an absolute monstrous amount of 64Ks over here that eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to start recycling into bulks. I hope that I'll be able to pull more of these 64Ks out of the washing step once I'm able to speed up processing all the way down the line. Um, that'll be really necessary, but let me go ahead and order some 256Ks right now. I'm just going to order um, two for general purpose use because that's just what I'm gonna have to use. Just for the general. I'm not gonna be able to partition every dust for a while. I'm sure the bulks are still gonna be pretty expensive in the grand scheme of things. Like two IV circuits is not cheap. I have to set up the MV field emitter, which means I need magnesium dibromide. That won't be difficult at all. Just some extra uh, on-demand work. I believe the. Oh, I'm gonna need netherite. Hopefully, let's see, is this pure netherite dust this requires? Just requires regular netherite dust, which requires netherite ingots, which we can just EBF, so from debris dust. Debris dust is going to be annoying though, because you have to do a bunch of work to get initialized debris dust. I think you have to go gambling for something. Is it small pile? I forget what it is. Yes. You initially have to go gambling in a centrifuge with nether agglomeratio, and then you can actually endlessly, once you have a little bit of the stuff, you can endlessly loop this stuff. But unfortunately, it does mean you have to get enough of it to start the loop. I don't believe it's debris dust positive. I believe it's net neutral on that. So you have to like you only get what you start with, what you put in. Um, so I'll probably always want to be endlessly gambling for this stuff eventually. But this requires an IV machine, and I was just gonna set up like a multi-block for it. And this is just gonna be like a nightmare to do. Um, Netherrack and LCR and lava and stuff. Ugh, just lots of work over here to do. But yeah, so we'll let that 256K craft in the background, and we'll go to on demand last. It looks like I'm just gonna have this niobium dust in my inventory now for a little bit. There was some small changes over here to ore processing over the last week. I do have, I have 6 void extractors. I don't remember if that was here last time, and it appears they all have turned off. I imagine it's because the ore is blocked up. Yes, because all the other drives are. Wait, the maceration drives weren't full, were they? I don't believe they were full. No. Huh. I wonder what the problem is over here. Is it possible? Oh, you want to know why? Because the redstone drive's filled up, I bet. Because I don't have, what? I don't know. I'm gonna have to take a look at this because it looks like all of this stuff is. Ah, yes. Here it is. I don't have those on partitioned drives. They just go into the general drives. And as I can see, that was a mistake. I have 291,000 diamonds, 281,000 emeralds, 269,000 nether quartz, 269,000 amethyst shards, 268,000 lapis, and 166,000 redstone. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to set up. The reason why I have so many of those things is I finally broke down and set up some of these mechanical sieves. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to do that, that I would be able to just subsist off the stockpiles I had from my original Civ setups and stuff. Because I was sitting this stuff for quite a while, and I had like 30,000 redstone stockpiled or something like that. I had sieved like 100,000 dust. I had a huge stockpile of dust from the original stone crushing setup on the original Bootstrap Island, and I had just sieved all of that dust at one point, and I had a pretty big stockpile of it, and I was hoping that stockpile would carry me to the bigger tier of the sieves. Because there's the mechanical sieves, which I have here, which only have one energy hatch and they're kind of lame. And then there's large sieves, which are tungsten steel and much better and can use parallel hatches, and so these would have been more future proof, so I wouldn't have to tear them down again. But these I was like so ready to push for them. I was making a big rush for them, and then I saw like, oh, pure netherite, that'll be fine, and I'll come back to that later. And then I finally got everything else, and then came back to pure netherite, and I was like, maybe not. Guess we're not doing that because that requires a bunch of other crap that I have to do. So I was like, ugh. Pure netherite is just this big old line down here. We start with another agglomeratio. We go to tiny pile of debris dust. Then we have debris dust. Debris dust gets combined with sulfur, chlorine trifluoride to make small pile of titanium trifluoride dust, which then gets processed down to titanium ingots and hydrofluoric acid. We get small pile of purified dust and sulfur dichloride here. I can pull it up in GUI. Debris dust. In an LCR. So we get then purified debris dust as well as a little bit extra pile of debris dust. Purified debris dust gets electrolyzed. We can electrolyze that into debris dust. And then we have to chemical bath it into, or we can also chemical bath it with tetrachloroethylene into pure netherite dust, and that gets EBF'd into pure netherite ingots. But it looks like this requires HSSG coils, which requires lots of other stuff. So as you can see, this was something that I was not really interested in doing. um, so unfortunately, it had to wait. And I was running low on redstone stockpiles because all the drives I was forced to spam were redstone hungry, and I mean seriously hungry. I had burned down pretty much my entire redstone stockpile to almost nothing, so I finally just had to sit down. I just broke down and made a dust sieve, but I'm also built like spamming cables everywhere. I have an absolute monstrous amount of ME cables and devices and things, which was chewing up nether quartz like nobody's business as well. And so I just set up one for sand as well. Um, I just have a tiny little forge hammer over here that just turns sand into dust, and I'm just relying on the sand processing I have from on the one of the first islands I made, one of the first buildings I made that just made gravel and sand for concrete mainly. Um, Eventually I will get a cobbleworks set up over here because there is just a big old cobbleworks multi-block. And that what that does is it just produces like massive amounts of sand, dust, and gravel, um, as well as crushed blackstone as well, which I'll need for Galena. Um, I'll have to figure out a source of Galena because I do need that stuff for um, indium. You need galena and sphalerite, so I might just have to hand batch some blackstone for a little bit of galena to kickstart everything, which will be annoying but doable. Um, so I really wanted to get this cobble work, so I wouldn't have to set up a forge hammer over here. And I wouldn't have to rely on the sand and gravel system that I have set up elsewhere. This would be entirely self-contained. I would just have to feed it lava and water. Water could be fed from an infinite water cell. Lava I can just feed in from the main system. Same with witch water for blackstone. I'll do that over where I make lava. And then I'd be in a really good state. Because as you can see, it takes seconds to produce literal thousands of this at HV. Like Circuit 3 produces 2,048 crushed blackstone over 4 seconds at HV. So this would be fantastic. This also consumes pure netherite gears. So I can't do this one either. So I'm unfortunately relegated to the tiny forge hammer, which is sort of all right in this case because I really don't need all that much ore processing right now anyway. Because to be frank, my ore processing facility cannot consume all the ore that I'm producing. Um, I can see all these these rock sifters. I got lucky, I guess. Oh, I forgot the storage is all full and stuff. Um, really quite unfortunate that it's all turned off, but it is what it is. I do have to fix a bunch of stuff. Well, hopefully, I'm really hoping that I can get bulk storage drives soon, and then I can stop worrying about ore processing storage. Having over investing into ore processing, and I know last video I said I was going to stop touching ore processing, and then I promptly didn't do any of that and just kept messing with it. Um, Over investing into ore processing was good. My failing was that I stopped. Uh, Talking about ore processing system upgrades is I was looking at what it would take to make the parallel hatch multi-blocks. And one thing I realized was, for example, let's take the large chemical bath that'll do ore washing for us. So this is the multi-block for ore washing, and we'll have access to a parallel hatch, right? The only one we can make is the 4 parallel hatch, the elite one. The elite one will give us 4 recipes in total. So if we take a look at, say, magnetite. Let's see, magnetite. If we want to make purified magnetite ore, we can ore wash it. And we'll be using distilled water, so we'll get all the resources, well, all the possible drops at 10 seconds. So if we just overclock this to say HV, it would be 2.5 seconds for one recipe. And we would do 4 at that time for 12,800 EU in total. However, if we perfect overclock to HV, it is 0.6 seconds for one for 3,000 EU, right? So about 4 perfect overclock washers will do the same thing as a single multi-block one, for the same speed for less total power. Uh, well, power rate is the same. It's total power that would be nice to save on. And I've decided that's just what I'm gonna do. Like, yeah, the big multi-blocks will scale better. Yeah, I will have to come in here and rip out all these old single block or these old 3x3 EV tier multi-blocks at some point to replace the big ones that can actually do para hatches and stuff, and with more energy hatches. But right now, I think they're probably the same. And I think if I just decide to just go for it and just really invest in these single block machines, that it'll last me long enough to the point where I'll be able to make like two parallel hatches down the line. Like if we look at parallel control hatch, we have access to, there's the elite, master, which does 16, ultimate, which does 64. We have the super that does 256, the epic that does 1024, the mega that does 2048, and there's the hyper that does 4096. And depending on how much I upgrade ore processing with just the regular single blocks, I might be able to like wait until like the super para or something, which is like UHV, which is like CSG or something. So maybe not quite to here, but I bet you I could easily get to the ultimate for 64 recipes. And by that stage, have the power to come in here and really revamp stuff. Um, so I've decided, like last night, I ordered some massive crafts about just tons and tons of these multi-blocks. I have, let's see, I have thermal centrifuge. I ordered 10 thermal centrifuges. I ordered 200 silicon bronze casings. I ordered like 400 hydraulium casings. I don't think I ordered enough duralumium. So I guess I can order like we'll order 200 of that stuff. We'll order some electrolyzers. I ordered a bunch of regular centrifuges as well. I ordered a bunch of Tumbaga. I ordered a bunch of energy hatches, HV energy hatches. So I have 42 of those. I probably need more of these converters. So I've decided that I'm going to stop half-assing it, and that's where my problem is coming in. As I was like, oh, I'm so close to the IV multi-blocks, I'll just wait for that. And the answer to that is just no. Just use these ones. The perfect overclocks are amazing. They're efficient enough that I think it's probably not worth moving to the big multi-blocks up until like the second tier parallel hatch. I could be wrong, but at least in my situation, I've decided that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna go for it. And I think I should have done this like 2 weeks ago. I should have just went, okay, I'm just gonna full send it on these multi-blocks because I'm definitely gonna do that for the mass readers because the mass readers just straight up one tick everything at LV. Like I'm giving them like an HV energy hatch, and they just straight up are a 4 amp EV energy hatch, and they just straight up like one tick every recipe I give them, which is amazing. Like there's very little reason for me to upgrade these to the big multi-blocks because they won't perfect overclock, and one ticking like 4 recipes at a time with one of these large because I have 4 of these is really nice, especially with how little power it takes is amazing. So I've just decided I'm gonna go for it. I just need to go for it, stop half-assing it, and just really, really throw a bunch of perfect overclocks at this and just give up trying to wait for the IV multi-blocks because it's been so painful. Like that's been my biggest sticking point for pretty much the last 2 weeks has effectively just been ore processing not been good enough and me like refusing to upgrade it because IV multi-blocks are right around the corner. And even though at this stage they really are literally right around the corner, I don't care. Like last night I was looking at them and I was trying to do the math and I'm like, these really aren't actually that worth it. So, because I was actually ordering crafts to prepare to build them out. So, there we go. So that's how ore processing is going to go. I do actually. The nice thing is, I pretty soon I will have access to the stocking one, the stocking buses. That'll be the big thing. Once I get the nether stars, I'll be able to make a bunch of IV sensors for the stocking input patches. The stocking input buses, I'll probably reserve the stockings for things that are dynamic, like fluids and things that I might want. So when I say dynamic, I mean things that will be provided in varying amounts and may not be provided at all. For things like distilled water, say for the washers, that'll probably just stay with a regular input hatch in an interface. I don't think there's any reason for me to want to waste a stocking on that. So, but it'll be really, really nice because I keep having to come in here and manually change filters around to what I want to process, what I want to prioritize, and it's really obnoxious. I'm still washing pyrochlor. Did I ever finish that drive? Is it still crafting? It's almost done. Nice. That would have taken like 2 hours earlier. There were some big upgrades for on-demand stuff. Um, how much pyrochlor is there? Uh, where are you? Oh, 10,000. Cool. So that'll be nice once that's done. And I still have plenty of room over here for more control subnets. I probably won't use all of them. I don't know what I'll use all the extra blank space for. Probably nothing. Maybe like I'll use like some storage monitors and stuff over here from the output subnet if I want to. I don't know. Anyway, so ore processing is looking up once I actually get those upgrades into place. Uh, where it's so close to, oh, and there we go, two 256K item storage cells. Let me go ahead and slap those in real quick so everything can get back to work. Because I am getting a little bit annoyed about how it's not working. Boom. There we go. Nice. I might order some more for just to partition off all these other bulk storage things. Um, but I am pretty close to the bulk storage drives. I know I just talked about how I was like, oh, I was so close and I was waiting for stuff and that threw me off pretty badly and now I'm doing it. I'm immediately doing it again. Oh well, that's GrugTick for you. Um, Over here, there's been some upgrades. And when I say some upgrades, I mean some serious upgrades. I've been moving away from the series of single blocks over to the actually, I already talked about this last week, and I know I did, but I did add a few more. I don't remember if the bender had been here before that, but it is now. But I also have the mixer here and the large forming press, as well as the alloy blast smelter with some RTM alloy coil blocks. I'm very happy with this. This has given me access to the fancy alloys you need for the IV multi-blocks, which will get used in some cases, so that is still useful, even though I originally set it up expecting to use it for the ore processing multi-blocks, which I've already discussed. Um, but that's okay because it does make a bunch of other alloys a lot quicker and just pulls some stuff off the EBF as well. Things like we're doing over here Marangan steel, titanium carbide, tungsten steel, tantalum carbide. Those four were really, really slow when it came to making them in the EBF when I was looking to make more nuclear reactors. That being said, though, at the time the EBFs had been underclocked for what I had access to. They were at EV when instead they could have been at IV. So they're all at IV now, and they're using RTM alloy coil blocks, so they're pretty quick and they're fairly power efficient for some recipes, at least a lot of the other cheaper recipes that I'm doing. I also added, I also had to add the input bus over here for the casing mold for the molten forms. This one has also been given a 4 amp EV energy hatch, so it's running at IV speeds for EV recipes. Same with the LCR. I still obviously have some single block LCR recipes. I just need to fix LCR stuff. Things like plastic boards need to go on passive. I do want to put plastic boards on passive and plastic printed boards on passive, just because those are things we use all the time. And at this stage, they are the #1 bottleneck when it comes to crafting in general. If something requires a circuit, it's usually getting stuck behind the plastic printed boards. So I should move them on to the LCR as a stopgap measure, but I've just been doing so many other things. There's been so many things to do that even though I have been waiting a long time on those crafts, there's usually something else I can take a look at. Or if I am waiting on the crafts, sometimes I just need a break and I'll just wait for the craft to complete. So yeah, that's been interesting. I can actually take a look at how much time I have. Um, Statistics, time played, 11 days. So I've played 250 hours already. Uh, I've been playing a lot. I've been doing a lot. um, we'll take a look at the clean room, and then we'll go take a look at the EBFs, and that'll be it, which is good because I've been rambling for over an hour at this stage. I have EV stuff in here, but I had EV stuff in here before. But the thing is now I also have EV ME circuit. I have the EV circuit assembler. I had the EV cutter in here, I believe. But I have the EV circuit assembler in here. I'm probably going to make maybe another one, or actually we'll probably just wait for IV stuff. But I also, the big kicker is I have 5 advanced ME assembler 3s. One of the problems I was having when it came to making storage things, the storage drives, was I only had a single HV advanced ME assembler, which was so friggin' slow. My god, that thing was slow. And now I have 5 EV ones, so it's much faster. I'll probably keep these for a while for at least a lot of the other, like the bulk stuff, like the 1Ks and the logic processors and the various things that I need to make a lot of that are very slow. And then I'll keep the IV around. That'll be used for things that are locked to IV. I do have some regular advanced assemblers over here. I will probably hook these back up with some different patterns and move some of like the old legacy patterns from the HV and MV assemblers into here, just so they're quicker and away from over there, so I can reuse that space for more multi-blocks. I do need to get like an LCR in here for nano wafers. I still haven't done nano wafers. Nanos are the next tier of chip. I can actually, all I need to do is legitimately just straight up set up the clean room. It'll all be done on demand. It won't be done passively just because I have other things I have to do than set up a passive clean room, unfortunately. Um, and it shouldn't be too bad. It is a minute for an LCR, but I can always overclock this to like Ivy, and this will perfect overclock. But also, it's a single wafer, which gets cut into 8 chips, which makes which will make 16 nanoprocessors. So it won't be like super mega ultra fast, but the problem is using nanos requires me to set up epoxy first, which I haven't done. So I have to do epoxy. So it's just there's a lot to do, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming with like, oh my god, I have to do this, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, and I have to do this. And the way you don't get overwhelmed in GregTech is you just have to go, okay, all of these other things are gonna fucking suck for like 2 weeks. But if I don't just do this one thing and I do everything, try and do everything all at once, I'm never gonna get everything done. And instead of one thing being good and everything else sucking, everything is gonna suck. So I just need to like sit down and just grind a bunch of stuff out. And I've played too much Minecraft. I'm gonna be real. I need to do something else and be a productive member of society, I think, or at least attempt to be. um, so I need to do passive chemical lines, and I need to do oil distillation, and I need to do nether stars, and I need to do ore processing, and it's just a lot. There's just a lot. Um, in terms of the EBF stuff, oh, actually, I forgot to show Radon Loop. I'll show Radon Loop after this. That'll be real quick. I do have some more passive EBFs over here. I set up passive titanium. I'm pretty sure I had passive titanium already. I also have this was passive. Actually, I already had passive silicon over here. But I did finally set up passive ilmenite processing. I also set up passive aluminum ingots. I have a store passive aluminum ingots over here. I believe this doesn't do anything yet. I've only set up one of these things. Yeah. Um, I also want to do passive steel over here. Because I still have a pretty good steel stockpile though, like 3,700 ingots of steel. So I do want to set that up pretty soon. Hopefully I have enough wrought iron. I believe I have plenty of wrought iron. Yeah, I've got 2,800 wrought iron, so I can process all that stuff down into steel. In the EBF, you can process. I believe the only way to process make steel in the EBF is to actually do it with the wrought iron. Yeah. So I have access to the solid blast furnace, which will do a block at a time. So you can either do the blast furnace, like the solid fueled one, or you can do the EBF with. Oh, actually, no, you can do an iron ingot. It's just cheaper to do it with a wrought iron. Um, but we're pretty good. So I can actually, recycle some of that raw iron from ilmenite processing back into steel. Um, but this doesn't do full blocks like the blast furnace does. But it is fairly quick and doesn't require me to do a bunch of funky shit. Although I don't know what I'm gonna do. I mean, I have plenty of charcoal, but I do need to extract charcoal down into wood tar for stuff eventually. Um, but yeah, so passive EBS are still pretty lackadaisical right now. Most of that stuff is done on demand. It's mostly for just a few ingots that I use a lot of, and things that are slow, like titanium. And ilmenite, I don't ever want to do that on demand. That stuff just wants to get. Realistically, that should probably be done in ore processing, and I might move it over to ore processing at some stage. It really wouldn't be all that difficult. It would just be setting up an EBF over there. And I've already kind of gone down the path of setting up a bunch of stuff in ore processing, so I don't know. Also will be have like other EBF things that I'll probably have to do in ore processing. Like maybe I'll do neckline in ore processing. I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there and when I care about that, which is not now. I have too much other stuff to care about. um, so we'll go take a quick little look at Radon Loop, and then I will probably clock off. I have some stuff I have to do today, though. Anyway, so over here I have 4 LCRs doing Radon Loop just because, or right now I only have one working. How is Radon? We used all of the uranium I had, huh? Yep, all the regular uranium got chewed up. But the idea is I will eventually have 4 LCRs doing Radon Loop because it's really slow. Um, so they're all running at EV, so we can take a look at Radon Loop. So Radon can be made in an LCR with 8 plutonium ingots, 10 buckets of air, 1 uranium dust. By base, it's 200 seconds at HV. It'll make 8 plutonium dust and 1 bucket of radon. However, if we perfect overclock this to EV, it's just 50 seconds. So down here, I just have a single advanced electric furnace, and this is putting into a bus that's shared amongst all four of these LCRs. We have two output buses that are shared, um, and we just have four LCRs that will work on this. We're just pulling air from the distillation subnet because it's exposed to mainnet, which then is exposed to whitenet. Um, yep. We're just ran out of uranium, unfortunately. It looks like pitch blend hasn't been processing because, like I mentioned, ore processing needs upgrades. But that's right on loop. Uh, so it wasn't too bad. I just needed to get the plutonium and break down into nuclear reactors. I kept losing at gambling and I got annoyed, so I just gave up and went to do nuclear reactors like I mentioned before. Um, oh my god, that was an hour ago. What the fuck? That's all I've got though for the craft. Like I said, I was very productive in terms of Minecraft this last week. I didn't really do a whole lot. I should have been working more on my book, but it is what it is. It was Thanksgiving weekend, right? So I played more Minecraft than I should have. Um, but yeah, um, also one reason why I was delaying it is because I got another Ergo keyboard. I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I had given, actually probably about 2 months ago, that I had given myself repetitive stress injury while writing my first book, and it hadn't really gotten any better, and I started switching, trying out new Ergo keyboards. The first one I got was the Kinesis Advantage 2, which was $450, and so it was very expensive and the build quality was lacking. It felt like a keyboard from 2005, but from an alternate dimension that was really obsessed with ergonomics. Um, and here's a really funny story about it. It's actually a direct copy and upgrade of the original Kinesis Advantage design, only made with modern materials and components. The original one was made in 1991 or 1995. I forget. Early mid 90s. And I was like, oh my god, it is, and it was updated 15 years later. So like the 2005 to 2008 range, I believe. So I was right. It was a keyboard from 2005. Um, it was also super niche. It really wasn't what I needed a keyboard to do. I think if the only thing I ever did was write books all day or like write emails and stuff all day, it would be a perfect keyboard for me. I think it would be amazing. The problem is I obviously play video games, as you guys have seen for the last hour and 11 minutes at this point. Um, so it really didn't really do what I needed to do. Like when it came to gaming, I kept having to switch keyboards, and for something like Minecraft, where I do have to type in a terminal a lot, right? I just type stuff like I'm searching stuff like storage drive or I might like look up an electrolyzer or whatever. Uh, so that meant that I was typing on a keyboard that really wasn't great for my wrists. So what I did instead was I bought another keyboard. I returned the Kinesis Advantage 2, and I was refunded pretty much all of the money from that. Um, and then I bought an Iris standard edition from Keeb, and that was about $100 cheaper. And I had to build it as a kit, but it was a solder-free kit, so it only took me like an hour to put together, and no solder at all. And I've been liking it a lot. It's a full split board, and it's really cut down. It's like a 60% or a 65% that's been cut in half with ortholinear. It's really interesting, and I've been really liking it. I've actually been playing on it this whole time. And it's actually immediately replaced my HyperX as my daily driver. I haven't touched that keyboard since the my Iris got here and I assembled it. So it's been really nice. It didn't really take me all that much time to switch to it. Sometimes the ortholinear keys are so if you look at a regular keyboard, most of you or virtually all of you, I assume just have a regular keyboard in front of you, assuming you're watching this at a computer. If you're not, hello. I'm from the tablet, I guess. I don't know. Um, your keyboard will be staggered, like different rows will be offset from each other. Um, Mine are in ortholinear, which means they're in direct columns, so they're straight up and down, so you don't have to move side to side between rows. And that does get me a couple of times, and I'm also missing a bunch of keys on the keyboard. But one thing this keyboard does do is it has two extra modifier keys for extra layers. So I'm just gonna actually like lore dump, or I guess just kind of like dump about keyboards and how they work and stuff for the next like 10 minutes probably. So if you're not here for that, if you're just here for the craft, thanks. I should probably just cut in a little bit before I go off on a tangent again, because I do that. Um, hour and 13 minutes and counting. So if you guys are you're just here for the craft, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have had a good week. My week has been very good. Thanksgiving week. Always love Thanksgiving. And I'll see you again next week. Anyway, now I'm gonna talk about keyboards for 10 minutes, maybe.
So how keyboards work is they have layers, and what a layer does is you press a modifier key to make it to change what a key does. The easiest example of this is say the shift button. You hold shift and it turns like a lowercase letter into an uppercase letter or a number into a symbol. That counts as a layer. My keyboard has two extra layer buttons. It has raise and it has lower, which means I have three layers, not counting the shift layer. I have the base layer, and then I have the lower layer and the raised layer. And then you can also use the shift layer for all of those as well. So actually, what's really funny is if I wanted to, I could move all of the keys on one half of this keyboard to another layer on the other side of the keyboard. I have to switch all the modifier keys to like my thumb cluster and stuff, but I could technically have a fully functioning English keyboard with all of the buttons on half a keyboard. It would be horrible to use because I'd have to have thumb buttons for like I have to use thumb buttons constantly, and I'm sure it would be ultra obnoxious. But it'd be really funny, and it's technically possible because the fewest number of keys you need for a working English keyboard is 18. It's either 12 or 18, and I think it's 18. You need like 10 layers for everything, so you have to press like four buttons for every letter or something like that. But it's technically possible. Would I do that? Absolutely fucking not. But it is technically possible, which is really funny. Um, but I've been really liking this Iris keyboard. It's very nice. It's obviously very expensive. Very expensive. Um, but it's been very good. It's been much nicer on my wrists than my other HyperX keyboard, which has been really quite a lifesaver. Like wrist pain fucking sucks. Protect your wrists. Learn to type well. Do exercises, I guess. Don't be a fat fuck like me. I'm not that fat, but chronically online, so I'm not like beefy or anything. You know what I mean? Um, Anyway, so I like this keyboard. It's very funny. It does some interesting things. I keep losing buttons and stuff, and part of the annoying thing is there's like buttons on the right side of my keyboard that I would want to press. Like when in JEI or something, right? You might want to press U on something. Well, that has to be. I used to take my hand off my mouse button so I could press the U button, but I can also do it's lower C, and it does the same thing now. I have a bunch of buttons, or I can do like lower Q, and I believe, let's see. I don't have a tilde button either. So I have lower escape, and that brings up my tool menu. So I can pull up the building gadget. Then I can do lower Q, or is it, it's lower Q, isn't it? No? Oh, yes, lower Q is anchor, that's home button. And then lower E pulls up the setting button, or end. Um, I believe I also have caps lock on lower X. No. Is it lower Z? Yeah, it's on lower Z. I forget what I have on lower X. I forget. Probably something important, but I don't know what it is. Um, yeah, I do lose buttons on where they are on this keyboard. There's a website that lets you rebind this keyboard really easily. It's called Via, and every now and then I have to just boot it up just so I can see what buttons I have on it. um, Eventually I'll get used to it. I'm already getting used to it, but it is really funny. Um, I do have to say though, a thumb cluster is fantastic. I get to use like Alt is on my thumb, lowers on my thumb, which means I can do a lot of really interesting things without having to use my pinky finger. And then my right hand for my other side of the keyboard, I actually have backspace on my thumb as well, which is a big change, but it's really nice. I also can do raise F for quotation, raise V for single apostrophe. I believe raise is it lower J? Yeah, lower J is N, and then I believe back what was it? Oh yeah, back G is underscore. There's a lot of funny buttons on this. I have to remember what I put on all my different layers. Um, but I do have it like triples the number of buttons you have. So I technically have a massive keyboard. I just have to press like a shitload of buttons to get there. Like Alt Shift F10 turns on instant replay from NVIDIA, and if I want to press that button, I have to press five buttons. I have to do uh, I have to do Alt Shift, raise, home. Yeah, because it'd be Alt Shift F10, which is actually only four buttons, right? Yes, Alt Shift, then it would be raise, escape. Oh, that's F11 that I just pressed. It's really funny. I have to press a bunch of buttons for some things. Like if I want to take a screenshot from Steam, I have to press a bunch of buttons as well. Um, sometimes it feels like I'm working like a nuclear reactor or like a hyper complex thing, and I feel like super smart. And then sometimes I flip a bunch of buttons and I feel like a dumbass. There's no in between. It's really funny. But I'm really liking this keyboard, so it's probably gonna stay. Um, I do wish it was spill resistant. It isn't, though. I feel like I was I've never really used spill resistant on my HyperX. The HyperX LA Origins I had was spill resistant, and I think it only came in clutch like once. And I just need to be like careful and not an idiot. I kind of ragged on the Kinesis Advantage 2 for having an exposed PCB. The Iris totally also has an exposed PCB as well, in between some buttons and stuff. Um, but at least it's better put together. And one of the reasons why this keyboard was so much more expensive than it could have been was because I went from the aluminum body frame. Iris offers like polycarb, which is much cheaper, like $70 cheaper. So you can get. I also forked over for a tenting kit, which I'm not using because my desk is too high. Um, so I also got like more expensive keycaps. So this keyboard could have been a lot cheaper. It could have been like $120 to $150 cheaper, I think, if I'd gone for all the cheapest possible options. Um, so, but I really like the aluminum frame of my HyperX. I like the weight of it. It's nice. It feels good. So I really wasn't going to give that up. That's one of the reasons why I went to the Iris was because it offered the aluminum body frame. So there's that. Anyway, I think I've talked for long enough, almost an hour and 20 minutes, and not even all of that was about Minecraft. Um, so if you guys are still here, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have had a good week. Like I mentioned, my week was pretty good. Got my new keyboard. Got play lots of Minecraft. Been doing some work in terms of like on my book and stuff. So that's been fun. So I hope you guys have a good week, and I will see you all again next week.